welcome to the Annielytics podcast. We have our host, Laura Adele, and we're excited to have you as our first guest of 2021.
Definitely.
And I'm sorry, we didn't have a prep. So usually I just realized that. So
I was going to ask about that. Yeah.
I prep Laura a little bit more than right now. So this will be more of a jam session. So so with that, and we will record and we will edit. But with that, I will announce right here with our lovely host, Laura Adele. And Laura, you are live.
Sounds great. Sarah, I've heard some great things about you, so I'm really excited to kick this off. So are you good to go?
Yeah.
Awesome. All right. Welcome, everybody, to the 2021 Annielytics podcast. Very excited, mostly to be out of 2020, but very excited to be here today. This is our first podcast of the year. Yay. And today we have Sarah Lean joining us, whom I've heard such amazing things about from Shannon Keene, another one of our previous podcast guests. So welcome, Sarah.
Thank you for having me. It's good to be here.
Yeah, why don't you give me a little bit of background of how you know Shannon?
So Shannon and I both work at Microsoft. Shannon's a cloud advocate and so am I. And I think in 2020, we both kind of nominated each other to do stuff. When I was invited to a conference, I'd be like, do you need another female speaker? Because Shannon can come. And we've been tit-tatting back and forth over the years. So that's how I've ended up here.
No, I love that. I mean, that actually, brings a really good point about networking in general and how powerful networking is, for our careers. Do you find that, a lot of the folks that you meet are folks that you bring in that arsenal of network, if you will? What's that been like for you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. And a great story about how networking has helped me is I started the Glasgow Azure user group. Someone came along who worked for Microsoft. He said, we have a role in our team. Would you like to join? I applied, ended up at Microsoft. So without starting that user group or attending that user group even, I would not have had the dream job that I do at Microsoft now. So networking can absolutely help you on your journey. So I think as much as you need to be focused on whatever your job is, for me, it's technology. I need to be keeping up with that. Networking is also part of what I need to do daily to continue doing what I want to do and grow as well.
Yeah, no, it's amazing. I've always said, and I mean this in no arrogance, but for the last probably 5 jobs of my career, it's all come through networking. It's not and something that I've reached out to explicitly. And so you can't undervalue, one of the things I didn't appreciate in college was the relationships and partnerships that could, affect you downstream. So, I considered myself a cool person. So I wasn't going to, rush a sorority, for example, even though now I regret it. But, that's neither here nor there. Because I look at, how much those relationships forged. And so I think that's a tremendous point. And Shannon's been a great friend and facilitator to the Annielytics podcast in terms of finding women like you. I work at Microsoft as well. And so I love just meeting another strong female, in our workplace. It's something that's to be said that I really feel, as we've changed our culture, we really have brought in a lot of amazing women. Do you find in your work, that you feel the same way?
Yeah, I think I've always worked in environments where it's been male orientated, right? I've mostly been the female, especially from the side of IT that I come into. Right. I'm in the infrastructure side. You find that most women are maybe in the data side or project management side. So I was always the rogue female in amongst the infrastructure guys. But it's nice to see that that's kind of changing, and there's a lot more. And certainly now that I'm active more on social media and I'm active at user groups when we can get to them, that there's more females out there than I've noticed. So it's great to see that we're encouraging them. And I think every female in the IT industry needs to continue to encourage more females, because there's still that perception that it's a male orientated environment and technology isn't something that females can do. So I love talking to school kids and trying to just show them And I think they're always fascinated when they hear that somebody works for Microsoft, because they're always like, oh, can I get a free Xbox?
It's so true. I've asked that all the time in my mentoring. And, you know, when I did actually secure one, I mean, now I can't even get my own Xbox right now with the new one, but when we could, I remember when I was asked that and I was like, well, for those of you who participate at the end, you know, trying to gamify the mentorship.
Yeah.
So let me ask you, did you find yourself ever faced with, you know, and coming into a male dominated, you know, industry, did you feel any of that imposter syndrome, you know, coming into that room, or, you know, in that early stage of your career, that it was hard to speak up and make your point be known? Or did you just, you know, go at it and not really, you know, be affected by something like that?
I think I found it always a little bit challenging. I think when I was younger, I didn't realize that it was because I was a female, or maybe because of the imposter syndrome, but certainly I have felt it. I've walked into customer events with colleagues who are male, and the customer always assumes that I'm the secretary, or even the, you know, like the work experience kind of learner. And I'm like, no, actually, I'm that guy's boss. So sometimes I have walked into those situations and had to do that awkward, no, I'm his boss, conversations. So yeah.
I wish I could have been there. That probably was a powerful moment to the women. Yay.
Yeah. And I think I probably don't help myself in the terms of, you won't be able to see this in the podcast, but I'm quite a small female as well. So I naturally kind of look younger, although I think I'm getting older now. But you know,
that's even better in this story. I love it.
But that always plays against you, right? That physical appearance, and people, how they judge you, even if they try not to judge you by physical appearance, they look at you and think, oh, you're that younger person, or the work experience. So that's always played against me. But then equally, it's always played for me, because sometimes I've been sat quietly in the corner, and then, you know, I come out with this amazing idea or amazing suggestion, and the customer's like, what now? Like what?
And it switches that dynamic immediately. It's that power of speaking up and just, you know, knowing what you know and going forward with it. But you're absolutely right. It's amazing how much we get judged. More so, I remember having this, you know, purely on a, you know, this is the principle. At my very first job, they came out with what is casual, you know, business Friday type wear. And for women, it was like no sandals, no, they went through all this list. I'm like, well, why don't men have that? Theirs was like Dockers and a polo shirt. I'm like, where's their like no flip flop? Like, you know, it just felt so very specific to our gender. And, you know, so yeah, we absolutely get judged on, you know, all of these things around what we wear, the persona we carry. But frankly, perception is reality. I hate it, but it is sort of the way that the workplace sees it. How do you just own who you are? Or have you ever had that moment where you've dressed or tried to change who you are to adapt to your environment? Or, you know, have you just owned, this is who I am, I'm going to wear what I want?
That's always been a challenge, especially when I used to go into customer environments. People expected you to dress smarter. That's absolutely not me. I love wearing jeans, love wearing t-shirt, love wearing a pair of trainers, and I've always had to dress the part. I've always had to dress the part, which has made me uncomfortable, which has probably hindered me in being able to own who I am and do the job I need to. That's what I love about Microsoft, though, because they don't care. I have stood up on the stage at Ignite in front of over 1,000 people in Orlando wearing trainers and jeans and a t-shirt.
And it's expected. I mean, I think if you got up there in a suit and high heels, like people would check out in that developer space. Like, clearly she's from something else. You know, she doesn't know what she's talking about.
Yeah. Absolutely. Like, you see Scott Guthrie, who everybody probably knows, he stands up there in a polo shirt. That is his brand, and he owns that. So why can't I do that? That's the kind of thing. So I definitely now have realized, as I've got older, I just have to be myself, and that's how I can be the most powerful me. If I try to be somebody else, it ain't going to work. It ain't going to work.
It's so true. You know, and I happen to notice your brogue, which I'm very jealous of. It's beautiful. I'm just curious, you know, where does it come from? You know, tell me a little bit about you and your background.
So I've got a bit of a weird story, because I grew up on a farm, a dairy farm, and always wanted to be a farmer, but was told I couldn't do that because that was a male orientated job. And I was pushed into IT. And ironically, that's a male orientated environment. But I think at the time my parents thought, oh, it's more lucrative, it's maybe more the future than where farming was, and they were probably right to a certain degree. So ironically, I ended up going into computing and just kind of loved that. I did the support element of it, helped people reset their passwords, fixed all those printers, all that kind of fun stuff, and just kind of gradually grew along. I did my apprenticeship in IT and worked up to where I am today. So yeah.
So when you say you were pushed in that, do you mean by your parents? Like they wanted, that's the field they wanted versus you wanting to be a farmer? And I wish you had been a farmer because I'm obsessed with animals. So.
I don't think I was pushed necessarily in a bad way, because I loved sitting in front of my computer. I remember the very first time that I got a computer, and I do remember dreaming that I would want to work for Bill Gates. I'd want to walk into the same office as him and shake his hand and he'd be my boss. So I think,
of course,
that was, yeah, as a kid, that's what you think. You don't, you see somebody like Bill Gates and that's who you kind of aspire to. So I think at the time my dream was to either be a farmer or to be IT, and that's where they pushed me down that road.
A gentle nudging and working for Bill Gates, of course, which I'm thinking when I was a kid, I definitely wasn't thinking about dreaming about working for Bill Gates. That just shows how smart you are. I think I wanted to be like a mermaid. I also wanted to be a cashier. I was obsessed with checking out. I know you're like, wow, you're setting the stage high, Laura, but literally my family gave me a Costco cash register, like a real one, as a Christmas gift. Like, that was my jam. But you had a computer and were dreaming about Bill Gates, so you were in a perfect career. I love that. So did you, as you've gone through this at Microsoft, have you had any, let's say, where you're working with, whether it be customers, partners, external, because again, as women in tech, we also have to project and relay this, this is who we are because this is the company that we work for. But sometimes they don't play in that same sandbox. They don't have the same guidelines and really the principles by which, we as our company try to follow. Have you ever experienced that in this, very male dominated field, and how have you combated that?
I don't think recently. I think previously in previous jobs, I've had some males give me great advice where they've told me if I don't dress like a female, I won't progress and I'll never be successful.
And that's a reality though. I mean, this happens a lot and people don't talk about it because right now, especially, it's a very taboo topic, but I think as women, we get faced with this all the time. And so I love that you're bringing up that example. I mean, how did that make you feel and how did you get past that?
I think at the time I was really worried. Like, he was a respected person in my eyes. And I was like, oh no, I need to go and change who I am. And I did. I went out and bought new clothes and stuff like that. All those clothes got ditched because I broke them or burst them when I was climbing under desks and trying to fix printers because they're not practical. But it's ironic. After a while, I kind of forgot that advice and thought, no, he's talking rubbish. And ironically, he stalked me on LinkedIn. He was looking at my LinkedIn profile, and I noticed he's still in the same job that he was when he gave me that advice, and I'm obviously not. So I think that's a little bit of karma. And
absolutely. And a little bit of like, you don't have to say anything, like, look where I am. Here you are. Okay, the unspoken like growth that happened there. Oh, I love that. No, I'm just thinking about it. Like, how would I have climbed under desks to do some of that wiring and fixing that you were doing if I had to be back in those kind of, outfits? I totally understand, but that's the reality. And I think, when I talk to girls coming out of, and I mean, literally girls, they are just coming out of high school, they're planning their careers in college and what they want to be. And they have these aspirations, while they may have heard of it, I don't think they know until they get in it or are faced with it, how uncomfortable it really can be. And how, you make these decisions. And I have done the same to change, to meet those, oh, well, you're older, you must be giving me wise advice. Yeah. And I think, would you agree or, in terms of imparting that, what would you say, to that young mind to say, ignore it enough that you're where you're comfortable, but just, really own who you are?
Yeah, I think it's very hard to tell someone who's young and impressionable, just to be yourself, because you don't. I'm in my late 30s. I still don't know who I am properly. So
that's true. And that changes too, especially when you're in those, 18, 19, you're going to go through iterations of life and change who you are.
Yeah, I think you just kind of have to And it sounds cliched, but follow your passion. Just follow what you're happy doing. If you're not happy doing it, if you can't sleep at night, if you're waking up in the morning not wanting to do whatever you're going to have to do, it's the wrong thing and you need to change it. It's really hard when you're younger. I feel for the next generation. I think it's even harder than when I was growing up with so much social media and the celebrities and all the kind of impressions that they get. But yeah, I think if you wake up in the morning and you don't want to go and do what you're going to do, that's the time to, change.
I was just talking to a mentee of mine who had been bullied in her youth, and then she's gone into her first role, and it's been very exciting for me to see, her sort of longitudinal progress of life. And now she's, feeling like she's being bullied at work because she is young. And it was heartbreaking because it harkened back to all of that childhood experience. And it's like, I too was trying to find the right words to say, like, without it sort of discounting that experience, because that's part of what makes her her.
Yeah.
I think, our childhoods, either can set us up for success. And we've had other guests talk about how their family wanted them to go down one path, but in a very negative way, didn't really support their dreams, going down maybe a tech path. And then they chose that risk to do their own thing. And they found that passion. What is your passion outside of tech? Because clearly tech is your passion in terms of work. But what other things make Sarah Sarah?
I don't know. I think it's very hard. I find answering that question very hard in 2021 because I've not been able to be myself for the last year, as the rest of us haven't. But when everything was normal, I loved to spend time with my friends and family, going out and visiting Scottish castles and traveling about. And
can I come with you, please?
Yes.
I am so sold on wanting to go on. I'm not even kidding. I mean, I am obsessed with Scottish castles, but I don't want to go on my own.
Well, when it's safe to come across and you can come with us.
I love that.
But yeah, that's what I love. I love traveling about Scotland. I love going on weekend adventures. Love going to agricultural shows and just seeing what's happening in that and supporting the industry and stuff like that where I can.
What's the coolest adventure you went on pre-COVID? I don't know. You probably are like, oh, I have so many. Let me pull from my arsenal here.
I don't know. I think that one of the last trips my husband and I took was way up north of Scotland, right up to the top. We were up at John O'Groats and we went to Castle May, which is what the Queen Mother, like the Queen Mother of the UK, owned, and that was pretty cool. I loved seeing that, and it was lovely. And you are actually literally on the edge of the mainland Scotland, so nice. that was nice. I'd love to go back up there. It was horrible weather. It was raining. It's Scotland, of course, it's going to rain, but I'd love to go back when it was a bit nicer and explore more of that coast and do the kind of what we call North Coast 500, where you kind of travel around the edge of Scotland mainland.
Oh, I love that.
So yeah, that's definitely a dream at the moment to do that, and that was probably the last coolest trip I probably had before COVID.
Can you? And this is my I guess my geographical ignorance, but can you drive the entire island like you can in Jamaica? Do the whole,
So you can do the mainland, but we have little islands split it all off Scotland's coast, so you can jump on car ferries to a lot of them. I probably wouldn't because it's really horrible sea and I'd be seasick and it'd be horrendous. But you could actually logistically drive on ferries and stuff to get to all the islands. But I think
thanks for making me feel better in my ignorant question by saying there's some ferries you can jump on. So in my head, I'm like, check. Okay, the answer is yes.
I'd probably take planes. There is an island just off Scotland you can actually fly to and land on the beach, and the runway is the beach. So there only is certain flights at certain times of the day when the tide's off. So that's on my bucket list to do as well.
Oh, absolutely. What a cool thing. Like we landed on the beach at the right time. Like imagine if they have to circle once in the title. Sorry, we're heading back. Oh no, that's fantastic. I really want to sort of understand though, in your path, if you had to name really looking back, at your younger self, and this is something I ask everybody because, I so wish, and I'm a quantum physicist by education, and I want to make the time machine that makes me be able to go back and meet my former, like my younger self and just tell myself so many things. But what would you tell your younger self, out of, all the points we talked about or some that we haven't, just to help set her on a path to succeed earlier, maybe than she already did?
I'd say apply to Microsoft sooner.
Oh my God.
I always thought, like, even though it was a dream, I always thought I was never good enough. Like that imposter syndrome that we talked about kicked in and said I was never good enough. And some wee girl from Scotland was never going to work for Microsoft. So yeah, I'd definitely tell her if I could go back and go apply sooner, because the opportunities in Microsoft are amazing and I've loved it. But I guess equally, the career path that I've taken has made me who I am and probably made me successful at Microsoft. So that's probably a catch-22, but I definitely tell her to look out for those jobs at Microsoft sooner.
Wow. I mean, no, I love my company too, no doubt, but that is a real testament for, the company itself. Like I would have never joined. And when I was interviewed, I was like, listen, for the last 10 years I've been blogging, I had nothing but terrible things to say about you as a company. I came from Apple. I was an Apple fangirl all in. And I was like, my friends, I lived out in Seattle, they would tell me these horror stories about the stack ranking. And, I had, even though, in hindsight, I'm like, well, there's probably a little bit of that everywhere. You're going to always rank your employees, but in my mind, I'm like, oh, it's terrible. Don't go work there. And so, your passion for the company though is amazing. Like how long have you worked at Microsoft?
I'm coming up just for 3 years now. So
that's great.
Still a newbie.
No, that's great. I mean, it's always awkward when someone comes on and maybe doesn't have the greatest things to say. It's like, oh, okay, I work in this company. This is kind of awkward, but so let me just, round out this conversation. And Shannon, I mean, literally Shannon's texting me right now. And I told her that we were doing this podcast saying you guys are going to get along great. And clearly she was right. If you, again, we've asked this of everybody, but planning a dinner party and thinking through who you would invite, alive or dead, fictional or non, what two people would you like to bring to that party and why?
I think the first guest would definitely be Barbara Streisand because I love her.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah, no, I can imagine she'd be an interesting person to talk to. I just finished watching Yentl, so that's just, anyways.
Yeah. So I think she's got pretty good stories to tell. And I don't know about the second one. I've played around with this because you kind of sent me the question across earlier, and I've played around with it. I think I'd probably actually like Liza Minnelli. I think she'd be fun, and I think she'd make a great pairing with Barbara. So
no, I was just thinking, after you have cocktails and your aperitif, then we could have sort of like a mini Broadway show going on.
Oh yeah.
When I was a kid, my grandmother and I used to fly up to New York every fall and we'd go to shows, and she was a huge Liza Minnelli fan. So yeah, I just remember that feeling very cabaret-esque, moment. So I love it. All right. I want to come to your dinner party too. So I'll just tag along on the back end.
Awesome.
I hope someday our paths cross at work. I know you're in infrastructure and I on the data science and AI side, but your energy is just so infectious, Sarah. So I really do hope our paths cross. So I'm going to nudge Shannon, to make sure that happens artificially, because I'd just love to chat further with you.
Yeah, hopefully we can meet at like Ignite or something when we do it back
Oh
in
yeah,
person
traveling. If I don't bust out of my house soon and travel again, like I was so proud that I'd reached the top of the line of American Airlines status. Like, oh, look at me. And now I'm like, oh my gosh, like those days of like, where am I going to use all my miles? I mean, such a foreign thought. But yes, I hope we do get to meet in person. And I love that we're growing this network of females that do have paths that cross at these conferences. So actually, you just gave me a great idea, and you can hold me to this. All the women that have, work at Microsoft or in our partner sphere, I'm going to pull them together when we finally can go to an Ignite or some type of Ready or some conference, and we're going to have the Annielytics, let's all meet and greet and share how kooky our talks were. But thank you so much, Sarah. I really appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us today on the Annielytics podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Have a great day, and bye everyone.
That was incredible. I just want to say, Laura, you found your voice. I don't know what happened over the break, in a good way. I mean, we are building this show. Laura comes in every day ready to go. I think you found your voice today.
Oh, it was just A, I got the proper mic set up, so that helps. B, I got a rest. I got some time off.
I'm just saying you found your voice.
Well, thank you.
Sarah, you're funny.
You are. And I'm going to say on a side note, it sounds like we're about the same age, but you look so amazing. You're like, I know you talked about it looking young, but I was like, really, we're the same age? Damn.
It's just good lighting.
That's it. Okay. All right. Thanks.
No, but,
again, make me feel good.
It was excellent. I have got nothing we've got one more today, but Laura, it's so nice to hear that in a nice way. It's when you build
Oh,
these
no,
shows and you're doing it, it was lovely. It was great.
Oh, thank
Okay.
you.
So we'll cut it, but yeah, you found your voice. So keep it up. Thanks,
Thank
everybody.
you. And Darren, I'll have
Yeah.
an answer for you about your
Oh.
email in the next few days.
Okay,
We're just
cool.
finalizing all of that.
Thank you. And this way, because we're just getting the team, and like you said, we'll have more team doing some more video for you. Okay,
Awesome.
great. Oh,
Thank
and
you.
I actually love the Annielytics at Ignite. We need to get Gretchen. I mean, I am telling you,
100%.
you
Oh,
have
by
to
the way,
do it.
we've scheduled our TikTok, so we're gonna have
Oh, you
our
did?
follow, and it's actually scheduled.
Oh, that's
so
great. But I got to tell you, Annielytics at Night, that's insane. Okay.
that would be super fun.
All right.
Thanks, Sarah,
everybody.
for the idea.
Cheers,
Bye.
guys.
It's a great
Bye.
idea.